truth is, Dark Souls 2 is flawed. It has a lot of mechanical instability and isn't what would be considered a typical Souls game. I beg the question, what Souls game isn't a complete mess? Dark Souls games from the get-go are janky, beautiful messes that create nostalgia in moments of trying to figure out where you belong in its ecosystem. Finally finishing Dark Souls 2, it is an underrated gem, created without Miyazaki's normal flair, and would prove to be one of the most discussed Dark Souls entries. Unfortunately, not discussed for its high points and only for what it experimented with. What's going on, you guys? It's your Huggable Hipster here and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be diving into my review of Dark Souls 2. I'm so incredibly proud of myself that I actually finished this game. Not only that, but I managed to do a somewhat sort of playthrough on YouTube of it. I say somewhat sort of because a lot of it I didn't record because, let's be honest, I wanted to have fun with it still on my own. Kind of the conundrum of being a content creator. You still want to enjoy things on your own, but you know you have to create content out of it. The truth about Dark Souls 2 is that it gave the big middle finger to the expectations that people had for it and took on a new lease, creating a Dark Souls that was meaningful in its own way and created a tangible relationship with the player. Yes, the enemy placement is horrific and the way in which the mechanics are done warrants some criticism, but taking the time to see beyond that for what the game is something unique and is a valid entry in the Souls franchise. So let's dive into the bosses of Dark Souls 2 because there's a lot to say about. The bosses in Dark Souls 2 have a certain charm to them where you don't expect to like certain bosses and massively dislike others. A lot of bosses created a simplicity about the game. 2 bosses was the norm in a lot of the encounters, which I found a little odd. And only 3 out of the several bosses in the entirety of the game were actually difficult in my experience. The areas of the game before the boss battle are much more difficult than the actual boss itself, which reminds me so much of Demon Souls. A lot of people told me that the difficulty rises once I get to the DLC, so that is great to know. Now, a lot of these bosses, at the time when I was seeing them in the game, didn't really immerse me in what the story was trying to convey. The world of Dark Souls is filled with subjectivities that bring a uniqueness to the way in which anyone will interpret these games. The lore of the bosses even align with the lore and story points from the first game, which is great to see, seeing as how different this title was from the first. So the mechanics of this game were definitely interesting to go through, and they are what make a Souls game a Souls game. Souls games are all about the janky mechanics that are poorly done, and they bring such a vibrancy and life to any Souls game that you play. The way the mechanics are so janky and the way that you kind of have to battle around with them, they bring this game series to life in a way that I don't think any other game series has really done, of where we actually find joy in the jankiness of the controls and how we kind of have to struggle with it for a bit. Yes, the enemy saturation is overbearing at times, but they make up for that by the enemies not reappearing. Yes, the player character is slow to heal unless you have absurdly high ADP. You have to account for how long it takes to heal, plus the time it takes for the enemy to attack you. So many moments in this game where I wondered about the decision making on the development, even the way in which the story was carried out at the very end with our character basically forced into rekindling the fire. Unless you get the second ending, which in and of itself is a whole cluster F to go through. You have to kill the king, you have to go and speak with a certain NPC at every bonfire. It is exhausting to go through. I will get it though. And the second ending didn't even appear until the update for Scholar of the First Sin. If you were to play the original game without the update, there would only be the one ending. This game took a very unique and different direction, and for that, I truly like how it approached a Souls game and the way in which a Souls game is constructed. It brought out the nostalgia and love I had for the first title, from seeing Ornstein again to the Bell Tower Gargoyles. Dark Souls 2 reinvented the wheel when it comes to Souls games, allowing players to question and be embraced in a new world. You guys, that was it for my review on Dark Souls 2. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you guys like my face and what I do, please be sure to subscribe and hit the bell down below. I make videos every weekday here on YouTube. May you find your worth in the waking world, dear hunter. Stay casually nerdy, and I will see you all in the next video. Umbasa.